Good evening and welcome to Reach Lawyer Source. Reach Lawyer Source is a program of Reach Lawyer to discuss, debate, support issues and challenges faced by women at home, at workplace, and in the society. Untangled, Setting Her Free is a series of talks on the issues around domestic violence. Today's topic, Weeping Willow. Welcome to Reach Lawyer Source. I would now like to hand over the session to our moderator, Ms. Mamata Ramapriya. Mamata, over to you.
Thank you. Welcome all. Welcome back to the second talk show series. No weeping willow. Someone said, you know, women in domestic violence is a weeping willow. That's the image we have fixed ourselves. Most of us feel bad about her condition, but keep a distance. Fate, we say. Her own making, we say. Her inability, we accuse. We keep distance. Some of us say she should shout from the rooftop. Some say she should learn to say no. It isn't that easy. She's no weeping willow, says Venkatesh Babajan. BT Venkatesh, or just BT, as popularly known as a litigating lawyer, activist, speaker, writer of 3+ decades, a former state public prosecutor, and one who is known for his decades of work on human rights in India, be it civil liberties, LGBTIQ rights, worker rights, women's rights, child rights, rights of marginalized, stigmatized, and the excluded. He's founder of Reach Lawyer, a community of lawyers, academics, journalists, activists, students, professionals, and that are concerned about human rights. We welcome BT Venkatesh, sir, to take over. Thank you. Stay tuned.
So, very good evening to you all. No weeping willow. This is second in the series of talk shows which Reach Lawyer Source is organizing on domestic violence, aspects of domestic violence, the perspectives on domestic violence, and the challenges and issues being discussed by experts who have been working on this subject for a number of years. The second in the series. In fact, I was just watching a documentary of an indigenous woman. She works in Peru. She walks along with the tourists, carrying their luggage like men and Sherpas in India to Machu Picchu. She's talking about the kind of violence that she has gone through. She is a survivor of domestic violence. The kind of violence that she has gone through, her hand burned, her life made miserable. She's always worried about her daughter. We keep hearing these kind of stories. The very image of a woman in domestic violence, what we see is a woman who has scars, visible scars. A woman who is in severe depression. Our image of a woman who has such difficulty in communicating. A woman who is always sad-faced. A woman who's like the tree, a weeping willow, always sad. Is this the situation that we face on every day? We have come across many women, professionals, working women. They put a face, they present themselves, they're hardworking, and they don't look like weeping willows. Does it mean that they're not facing domestic violence? Or is it that we expect every woman to come out and shout over the rooftop that I'm in domestic violence? Or is it that if we see a woman who is vocal, are we considering her being very loud? The kind of images that we carry, the kind of judgments that we make about a woman and domestic violence is very, very, very difficult. In fact, many a time, being a practicing lawyer, we see that most of us are judgmental. When I said that, someone said that she's a weeping willow, that being judgmental. That she needs to come over the rooftop and shout, is that being judgmental. That she is too loud is being judgmental. So the way a woman has to communicate when she's in domestic violence and she's a victim of domestic violence, it's extremely difficult. The kind of stories we listen, it's not that we don't listen. There are a number of times, a huge number of programs that come on television which carry the stories of cruelty, of kind of challenges, issues that a woman faces, be it her career, be it at home, at workplace, out in the society. And the kind of taboos, the kind of traditions, the kind of advices that we give makes her life so difficult. In fact, if a woman appears like a weeping willow, it is we who have driven her to such a situation. So given that kind of a fact, how a woman should and what a woman should do. In fact, yesterday when Anne Thomas was talking about it, she gave very, very beautiful perspectives that how the society is judgmental on every aspect of life of a woman. that there is a need that she should get married at a particular age. She's getting older. There is a need that she should not be overly educated. Where we will find a groom for her. There's a need that she need to use kind of creams, aspects which would enhance her beauty so that she is visibly presentable, so presentable, so that we can find a groom. Or that how she is supposed to do a particular activity, how she should be good in cooking, how she should be very accommodative to anyone who is associated, related to the husband. We come across many of these aspects. And the boys who are there are allowed the kind of freedom, the way they can communicate, the way they can talk, be it a spouse or a mother or a sister. So the kind of language that is employed demonstrates that the woman has to take it all. Is it all the cases that in every case the woman is always at a difficult situation? Not necessarily. There are instances where there are men who also face this situation. But what we have created is a society, a tradition, practice that treats women at a lower pedestal in the structures of the family, in the structures of power in the family, that she is not an equal. The moment she is not an equal, she is pushed to the level of a dependent. Is she a dependent? With the kind of spaces that we have, many a time, a woman who is gainfully employed, equally competent, or one who is independent in her profession, in her career, even that woman faces the moment she comes home that she has to change her roles from being a confident professional or an independent person to that of being independent. That she has to take any kind of statement or instruction given to her. She has to don many roles, that of a caregiver, that of an attendant, that of a wife, that of a mother. She has to do many roles that she has to. And more so, her failure in any of these aspects can be easily called in question without ever appreciating her contribution. And the moment she reacts, immediately the kind of language that's employed is that she is a difficult woman. She is a woman who's loudmouthed. She is a woman who is not a family person as such. So she is slowly pushed into a situation, her behavior is being constructed to such a degree that over a period of time, we have seen she loses her confidence. She starts complying. She starts with adjusting. She starts with activities which tries to please others. And in that process, we have seen she loses herself. She loses her identity. She loses her existence, and she starts losing her self-esteem. We have come across women who lose their very person, and their person is one of a person who is supposed to be dependent, who is supposed to be always available for service to others. And that's a big challenge that a woman faces. The kind of life she's framed into, that she is in such a frame, it becomes impossible for her to speak for herself, to articulate her existence, to articulate that she has an independent existence. She has a right to speak. She has a life of her own. all these aspects are something which make her, absence of all these aspects, which make her over a period of time a weeping willow. She's one, I believe that most of us have contributed to it. Her immediate family, her parenting, her husband, in-laws, relatives. It's not that it happens only from one person. It happens from among so many people around that woman who construct her identity, who construct her existence, who construct her thinking, who construct the way she's supposed to be presentable. That she in all these aspects, she loses herself. I think that becomes her a weeping willow. When she is serious, violence she faces, physical, verbal, non-verbal, emotional, sexual, financial, the kind of violence that can be put to her, she's subjected to, makes it so difficult for her. And as we see many a time, women having no alternatives, they don't look at alternatives. She can't take a call because the frame, the being, everyone communicating to her that how she is supposed to behave, how she is to be more presentable, how she needs to be more acceptable, how she has to understand, accept her condition, and how people around her being very judgmental about her behavior makes it so difficult for herself to express herself. And as she sinks, as she loses her own person, she is dependent. She is driven to a situation where she looks out for the violator for support. That's the big challenge. And in fact, when we make a statement as against women who are facing domestic violence, when we say that she must come out, she must speak, she must say, learn to say no, it's very difficult for her because it's easier for us to communicate from a distance. We have never heard her. We have never listened to her condition. We have no information what she is going through, how she is being pushed to a corner, how she is pushed to thinking in a particular manner, how her person is being destroyed. I think that's the challenge that we see in women who face domestic violence. It's the kind of violence that she faces: verbal violence, abuses, non-verbal violence, saying that the language, the body language, the intimidation would go to show that, yes, you are not behaving in a manner which you are supposed to. And the kind of language that's employed, denigrating her all the time, trying to tell that she's useless, trying to tell that she's yet to learn many things, trying to tell that she's incapable, and the kind of statements that keep getting into her head, the way it is being put to her, starts making her feel weaker, weaker, weaker by the day and over a period of time. In fact, the domestic violence is not something which we see that it happened one night, there is a violence. No, it grows. As the woman keeps suffering, as women keeps accommodating, the violence increases. And the confidence of the abuser increases over a period of time. And when it is extremely difficult situation, she appears to be a weeping willow. I think that's where we come across this judgmental attitude among us. We say that she's a weeping willow. She's not. It's our act or our failure to understand her, our failure to reach to her, our failure to give her that confidence that she is her own person. I think that makes the difference. Then there is a responsibility that's cast upon all. The people who have concern for her need to give that confidence, The people who associate her at home, at workplace, among friends and relatives need to know there are million symptoms of a person in domestic violence. A million kind of statements. When she makes statements, we can see that yes, there is some issues and challenges. We should be in a position to identify them. We should be in a position to talk to her. Is she having a difficult situation? Many a time women don't state that they are in domestic violence. They would like to put on a facade that they are, yeah, it's an aberration. Even sometimes where there is a serious physical assault, million times we have come across women informing the doctors when they go for treatment, whether it's a fracture, whether it's a gash, saying it was accidental. It was accidental. On the person who has gone through that kind of violence, why she refuses to make a statement that she has been assaulted, she has been beaten, she has been stabbed, that gash is caused by a person who is the violator. Why she does not speak? The reasons are million. She had responsibilities. Maybe she's put into a situation of financial dependence. Maybe she's suffering because she has to take care of the children. That children are one who make her continue to live in an abusive relationship. So we come across these million answers, these million explanations by the woman who continues to live in domestic violence, despite the fact it's so difficult for any person to live in such situation. There is a need and there is a responsibility among us that we address these issues. Listen to her. In fact, at Reach Lawyer, for years we have been hearing these cases. Many a time we come across women who find it very difficult to articulate. So we give them the confidence that they can speak about their condition. We listen to them, a patient hearing. We give them time. We ask them to write what they are going through. We ask them to tell that for their dear friends with whom she can communicate, one who can trust. So we listen to them. And in fact, we have seen in many cases, once the woman is given that space to inform the kind of challenges, problems, violence that she has faced, she finds it a little easier. She finds, okay, there is someone to listen to her. She has no clue how to take it forward. But at least there is someone who listens to her situation, her story. We call it boj halka hua. There's some amount of lightening in the heart, burden on the heart. She's easier. We can talk to her. Millions of women are in need of some counseling. Millions of women are in need of someone to listen to their stories. And millions of women are in need of a sound legal advice. When they know that what are the options that they have no idea what their options are. When they are in an abusive relationship, what they can do, what all the possible things that law provides. It may sound strange that we live in a country where we have a great number of laws which are protective of rights of women, whether it is Section 125 for maintenance in the Code of Criminal Procedure, or Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, or under the laws relating to every aspect, whether it is Hindu marriage and Act of the Muslim Marriage Act, you name. Every statute provides a set of rights to women. The number of rights should guarantee to her. Her integrity, her personal integrity can be protected. But million times we have come across these stories where the spouse or the intimate partner tells her that she has no way. She is told that she is not going to succeed. She is told that the courts are there. You can go to court. Nothing will happen. You're going to lose. So the kind of statements which are made to her makes her lose confidence. She feels that there is no way out. She is stuck. She is stuck and she's unable to move out of that. She feels that her fate is fixed, that she has to live in such condition for entire life. Many women take their lives. The high suicide rate among persons in domestic violence. There are high rates of depression among these women. A great number of women with severe depression. We have come across many women who are losing their orientation. Many women who are in such situation that it becomes a situation where they turn out to be schizophrenic. We have cases of that nature. The kind of challenges women face in domestic violence are millions. And the kind of violence that happens, myriads of aspects. It's not just one way. All that we see is a visible scar for us to say that she is in domestic violence. There are no visible bruises in millions and millions of cases. No visible bruises. That being the case, that it's easier for us to make a statement, be judgmental, and just to say that, she always makes up for things, or to say that, she is in such a sad state and she has to live with it, and it's fate, or it's her own making, if she made choices. So many of these aspects, I think we need to reconsider, we need to think again and try to listen to her. I think it's a duty that's cast upon society. She makes half the population of this world. According to ILO, women work more than men in this world, physically. Unfortunately, most women don't get paid for their work which they do dawn to dusk. Millions of them are unpaid labor. So given such a situation, there is a need that we need to have a rethink. We need to listen to her. We need to talk about this issue. We need to be open about this issue, not cover this up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We do have a question. Sir, as you mentioned, there are several laws directed to especially protect women from domestic violence, and several remedies are also available for her. But in reality, since domestic violence cases come under the purview of family law, there is a lot of vilification and demonization that happens from the family side itself. Further, the legal system is also unsupportive to an extent. In such a situation, how is it possible as a lawyer to make things better for your client, that is the woman?
You see, there are laws which we have. So, for example, you take this law of protection of women from domestic violence act. This law is one of the very laws wherein it tries to provide women all the rights which she can seek. For example, earlier to this law, if a woman wanted the custody of the children, she had to file a suit for custody of the children. If she wanted maintenance, she had to file a suit in the court, or she had to seek maintenance in Code of Criminal Procedure. Earlier, before the amendment to the Code of Criminal Procedure, she could only seek 500 rupees as monthly maintenance of the under Section 125 of the CRPC. So she had, if she wanted more maintenance, she had to file a suit for maintenance. If she wanted divorce, she has to file a suit. If she wanted that her personal protection is required, she had to seek for an suit for injunction. If she wanted every aspects of this particular thing, she had to go for an independent litigation. Now imagine this. Each of this litigation costed money. You have to be court. It's independent proceedings before different courts. You have to seek restitution of conjugal rights in a family court. You have to seek injunction suit in under civil court if it's an urban situation. You have to go to a magistrate court for seeking maintenance. You have to court under suit for custody of the children. So you look at each of this litigation, it was virtually impossible for a woman to seek her rights. It was so challenging. So post the Istanbul Convention and the kind of challenge that women faces, we have brought in the new law, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, wherein she is entitled to seeking a shared residence. She is in a position to seek restraining orders as against husband from committing any act of violence or demonstrating any amount of physical abuse or verbal abuse on her. She is entitled to seek custody of the children. She is entitled to seek maintenance, shared residence. You name all of them are available under one statute. Well, the statute is in existence. Many women are pushed to saying that anyone who seeks. So we have this come across these kind of cruelty cases, So there is this stigma that's attached, as you said, that we have some separate website. In fact, earlier we had that. I don't know how many of them exist now. Call it a website called 498A Girl. Any woman who has lodged a complaint of cruelty as against the husband and in-laws, she is called a 498A Girl. Her photograph is presented, her privacy is violated, and she is told in such manner that it becomes very difficult for her to even go on. In fact, the moment everywhere she is a 498A Girl. That kind of stigma that's attached to her. But now the construct which we have in these laws do protect her, but all that requires is that there is a need that she needs to be a little confident. And the people around her need to tell her that these laws are possible. It's not that it's difficult. Great number of cases that we are handling in the courts, we are able to get them reliefs. In fact, we have secured great amount of relief for women in respect of restraint orders. We have secured great amount of women right of shared residence. We have secured good amount of rights for women in respect of custody of the children is concerned. We've got them also the kind of maintenance available. So these are the rights which are existing. Yes, there's always this case that if the woman is equally qualified, well placed, she is able to secure a job. The demand made by this system is that no, she can find a job. But the difficulty is that if the woman is a mother having a young child, it's very difficult for her, despite the fact that she's better qualified. She may not be able to go out and seek employment because she has to take care. She's the most important caregiver for her child. No one else can replace a mother. So the court need to look into it. That need to be impressed upon. That need to be told. And there is a need that we need to inform this woman of these rights. We need to also bring great amount of awareness on these rights are concerned to the communities. You see, one of the challenges that we face is that we face this, we live in a society which is extremely patriarchal in nature. So therefore, the notions of patriarchy, that the women are dependent, the women need to be subservient, women need to not be complaining for every small thing. So these are the kind of notions that we have, make it so difficult. The laws exist, laws are good, laws are effective. It's not that they're ineffective. All that matters is that presenting what is required. There are challenges that we have is that many a time, the number of cases that are registered by women, She has no clue because she has no understanding of the law is concerned. The council or the family and their emotionally charged situation make her lodge many complaints. One, a complaint of cruelty. She lodges for maintenance. She files for restitution of conjugal rights. She challenges for custody of the children. So what happens, there are situations where she makes contradictory statements. So these are the challenges that we face. So therefore, a woman needs a sound legal advice. She needs to explain what her situation is, what are the kind of relief that she can seek. That kind of an advice needs to be given to her. If she is seeking restitution of conjugal rights, that she wants to continue with the marriage, that it is, and the person informed the husband that he is not supposed to behave, she would not like to break the marriage, then can she seek a complaint of cruelty? What exactly the consequences? What exactly the degree of violence that she is facing? Is there a possibility of mediation? Is there a possibility of people sitting together and trying to counsel the parties and try to see that they get along well? There are a number of instances where people have come together after domestic violence. There are cases where people do come together. There's a mediation process. Through mediation process, people have gone back to the families. Their violence reduced. There are challenges. Many of women in this country don't want to seek a divorce right away. It's not possible for them. They feel that it's the kind of stigma that's placed on her makes it very difficult to make a choice to move out of the marriage. It's difficult. Now, what exactly we're addressing? How exactly we're addressing? I think there are a number of methods that we have. In fact, if you were to go to the family law courts these days, we have this mediation process. Very, very beautiful mediation process is happening. The initial step that one needs to take is essential. She needs to have a sound legal advice so that she can make her choices, informed choices regarding her life is concerned. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We do have another question. I think you also mentioned this idea of obligations that a woman undergoes. And we have always come across this idea of Patni Dharma, that they have some obligations that they have to fulfill. And with this raging idea of financial independence that people are striving for, I think there are some changes that we have to make from both an education and a legal reform as such. So are there any improvements in the law that can be done which will make the whole process easier for women, easy access for women? Because as you mentioned, they don't want to right away get a divorce because not only it's a tedious process, but there's also a very bad stigma attached to it. So yeah. Also, we do encourage questions from the audience. If you have questions, do drop in the chat box.
Mamta, it's this way. The kind of system that we have, the patriarchal system is talking in terms of, there was a talk which I was invited to in a television show many years ago, stating that there is great number of divorce cases that are being registered in urban places, more particularly in a city like Bangalore. People are rushing for seeking divorce. And there was lots of discussion that why this happens, why women are seeking divorce. Has marriage lost its value? The kind of discussion it went on, and they called me. And they said that what's my response was. I told them that with the kind of population that we have, close to 1 crore population in Bangalore, the number of cases of divorce are very, very, very small. It means that we live in a society where women would like to continue in marriage despite the fact that they face great amount of violence or abuse. We have come across many of these cases who have come to our office too. Many of them are well-qualified women. Many of them are employed, gainfully employed. Many of them are very senior professionals, but they still face the kind of violence unimaginable. In fact, we have a great number of stories to share, the kind of nature of violence. We had a woman who was a senior management person in a software company, and her husband was junior editor in the department. Both of them joined together, but she progressed in her career because of her efficiency. He could not progress. That he took against her at home. He abused her financially to such degrees that number of properties, number of things were bought for anyone and everyone from his family, immediately his family, at her cost. She had to pay for the same. She had to keep paying his installments. She had to pay for the installments for the property that was bought in her husband's parents' name, in-laws' name. She continued in a marriage which was very, very financially draining on her. She had to seek a relief. It was such a difficult thing to come out of the marriage. The very number of cases we have come across this kind of financial abuse that keeps happening. We have been working with women who are in garment industry. We have been working with government unions. So many women who face severe harassment at home. One of the most common accusations against women is her chastity, that she is moving up with someone else. She is talking to some other man. She has to because she is in a workplace. Now, that is something which she faces on everyday basis at home. So difficult. But the kind of laws that we have, the kind of challenges that we have is that how we can inform her about the same, how we can give her the confidence to make statement on this, speak about it and seek relief, kind of relief that are available to her. One of the major aspects which I feel is that the awareness is something that needs to be spread. Good amount of awareness that need to be spread. Because the kind of society we live in, the kind of practices that we have, she is supposed to be the Patni Dharma. And Patni Dharma, I think it's a change that we have to see that we live in an India which has a constitution, which has a non-discrimination clause, loud and clear. These aspects are not law. These aspects are against her personal integrity. I think that kind of awareness need to be spread, that she is independent. Her person need to be respected. She has a dignity of her own. She has esteem of her own. That need to be protected. That need to be strengthened. And that's the way forward. Therefore, when we look at these kind of situations, there are issues where women who ask questions are considered to be impossible women. I think we need to put forward that these are women who are qualified, who are bringing to the notice of the system that yes, these old practices of denigrating women, keeping women in difficult conditions is unacceptable. I think that's something which should be the message that should be going. Yes. No.
Yes, thank you, sir. So we always usually talk about how we can bring awareness with women, right? With women, how do you think we can bring some sort of awareness with children and men in this aspect as to how, especially this idea of marital obligations and how people work through it. We see this everywhere, right? Now, in being in urban societies, we know people, at least people know they have a voice. But with respect to rural areas, as I already mentioned, even you stated this idea of dharma that people think, not just our Hindu religion or anything, any other sect or any other religion that we set to some sort of an obligations that we are. So essentially, they feel like questioning itself is wrong. So do you think there has to also bring about a change with children and men and the whole system itself, not just making or pushing women to come forth.
Yeah, today I was listening to a woman who is around 58 years. She comes to me with a complaint. She is from a rural area. She comes to me with a complaint that her sons are abusing her and her husband, that they want the property which they have to be given to them. And they are not willing to give any share to the daughter. That they are not even willing to give a share to the parents. So the kind of abuse, the kind of language that's employed as against her, and she was crying in my office today afternoon. We are living in a society where women have little or no respect, be it from the husband, be it from the father, be it from the brother, be it from the children. She faces these kind of problems all over. And her dependence on any of them would make her very vulnerable. Now we have laws which we have. There is a change that has happened in all these days. In fact, we must talk of Ambedkar, who was one of the first person who said that women need to be given equal right, which was opposed when Hindu Succession Act was brought in. He resigned for the same because women were not given equal rights in family law. It was only in 2006 that Hindu Succession Act came to be changed, wherein that women also got equal right in succession in ancestral properties concerned. 2006, it took so many years to get that right to equal share in ancestral property. Now, women are pushed on all these aspects. When she is not given that share, the person who has property also has a problem. The one who is dependent has more problem. And the construct which we have in rural, one of the challenges that we see is that this awareness that regarding rights are concerned need to reach each and every corner. So it's not impossible. There is a need that this awareness need to go. In fact, one of the major reasons we have been working on these issues of domestic violence, rights of women, is that this awareness should go. In fact, from Reach Lawyer Soch, we are planning to conduct these programs in Kannada, in Telugu, in Tamil, in Malayalam, and in Hindi, so that it's necessary that these kind of discussions and debate need reach many persons, men, women, children. There's a need that we need to keep informing people that the integrity of the person, the individual person of the woman need to be respected. That the so-called practices and the so-called traditions which we have no place in a construct of a right of a woman under the Constitution. She's equal citizen with equal rights. The construct of non-discrimination applies in every aspect of her life. She's entitled to equal treatment. She's entitled to equal rights. She's entitled to equal share in employment. She's entitled to equal pay for the equal work. She's entitled to all these rights. And this kind of language which we have need to be made more prominent. And the kind of language that need to be pushed is that the children need to be told how one need to respect women. In fact, the discrimination that happens at home, that the girl child is a secondary citizen compared to the boy child, is unacceptable. That need to change. That's the law. That's what Constitution speaks. The tragedy is that in last 70 years, we have not made great effort in reaching out to people to tell that you can't discriminate on this aspect. You can't discriminate women on these aspects. She's entitled to equal right for education, to equal right to employment, equal right to wages, equal right to existence, and equal respect for her person. That's something which should be taught at home by parents to children, that they are not supposed to treat women with disrespect. They are supposed to treat friends with equal amount of respect and love and affection. There is a need that we need to change this dialogue, change this process, that the equality is entitlement of every person in this world. It's not that it is restricted only to men seeking employment, or it's not men trying to seek the political power. Any aspect of the equality is in all aspects of life. And women, being half the population of the world, has all the rights, all the possibilities equally shared to her and respect too. And it's essential. And that kind of culture that needs to be developed at home, that's needed, much needed. That's something which is essential.
Yes, sir. I think as law students, we probably agree with this growing. We are trying to make sure people are aware. We're trying to get gender inclusive toys. We're not trying to separate pink, blue. I think that's probably a start. We do have another question. There are a lot of debates and criticism about the section 498A of the IPC. It is said that the provision which actually protects women from cruelty is misused to fasten the family court proceedings. So how do you think we should break this issue down? How do we understand this debate? And what do we address this criticism?
Let me put this very important. This is always the question we come across. As I told you earlier, the 498A girl, there's a website which was shown to me some days ago, a few years ago. This was also a public debate. It said that women lodge false complaint. In fact, unfortunately, this was also the case which was an obiter. Obiter was an opinion that was expressed in several judgments in the Supreme Court. Is it the case that women lodge false complaint? Is it that men are being discriminated? So when you look at the kind of violence that happens for women in any part of the world, there have been doing good amount of studies on this aspect across the globe at Rich Lawyer's Source, we see that the violence that is perpetrated against them, a small fraction, an extremely small fraction, results in lodging a complaint. Many of them suffer. Many of them continue to be in a relationship. Many of them take their lives. Many of them are killed, murdered brutally. In fact, the kind of dowry deaths we have in this country demonstrates the kind of the violence that happens against women in these cases. How many of them have lost a complaint? Every dowry death is a complaint that was not filed. Every time a woman has committed suicide who was in marriage, a complaint that was not filed. The cruelty cases, we look at only those who have survived that kind of situation. Those who have suffered, those who have given their life, those complaints are not coming under 498A. They just vanish. Many of them are not in complaint. In fact, many of these cases, we come across that there was an accidental death or that she was in depression. So the death is closed, the chapter. Nobody discusses about why she committed suicide, what made her. So when you look from all these cases, when you talk in terms of what was the cruelty that she suffered, why she did not lodge a complaint. So when we say that women are filing false complaints, there are millions of women who are not lodging a complaint. Millions of women who face severe violence at home, abuse at home, they're not lodging a complaint. I think that's something which should be informed. Most of us need to know about that because the noise that is made adds against few women who lodge a complaint. Now, many will say that, Mr. Venkatesh, there are some false complaints too. Now, the construct is that in great number of these cases, there are few cases which result in conviction. So that demonstrates that this law is being misused. That's the statement made by them. Look at the kind of law that we have in this country. So we have a law which believes in adversarial criminal jurisprudence, wherein a person is need to be proved, guilt need to be proved beyond all reasonable doubts as against an accused person. That is the law that we have. An element of doubt that can be created in the process can go to the benefit of the accused. That's the kind of law that we have. It's a very robust, wonderful construct of criminal jurisprudence. Now, many a time, women who face this kind of cruelty are unable to produce that amount of data. It's purely a personal experience. She may not be in a position to demonstrate who saw the cruelty happen. Many instances, it's purely personal. She is the only witness she has gone through. If somebody has choked a wife, the husband has choked the wife in the bedroom, tried to kill her, and she says that it was an attempt to kill her, there are no eyewitnesses to that account. It's her testimony that matters. If there is some medical evidence, then good. Many times it takes longer time to register complaints. In the system that we have in cruelty cases, you know how difficult it is to lodge a complaint. When a complaint is brought to the police station, many a time it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 days for a woman to get a complaint registered. The kind of visible mark of abuse which is there would have lost. And look at those instances where there is no visible bruises. It is said that she has made up the case. So the absence of credible evidence in good number of cases, the cases get acquitted. It does not mean that the complaint was a false complaint. Many a time, because of certain amount of want of an absolute evidence in respect of conviction, a person gets acquitted. Not that he's innocent of the crime. I think this kind of language that need to be spoken, need to be tamed. The question is that she has, these things need to be brought to the knowledge of the system and show that it's unacceptable. When a person brings this more and more number of cases come out, when there are instances of this nature come out, yes, there'll be a better awareness that yes, you are going to be held accountable for your conduct. I think that's something which is the need. This 498 cases are bringing a person to make this person accountable for his conduct. The kind of reaction that we have in many of these cases saying that there's a false complaint, women are abusing this particular law, I say that it is overstretched and it is certainly not true. Maybe there are very few instances of that nature, but there are many, many millions of cases that are not lodged, that are not recorded, that are not registered. Because most of the times, the families of the girl, that a girl is considered to be a burden in the traditional families that we have in this country, despite the fact that she is well qualified or even better employed. Assume a situation, one who is not employed is difficult altogether. But even those who is better qualified, the woman is considered to be a burden on the family. Woman is considered to be such a burden on the family that she needs to be somehow married off. The girl is married off. The person whom they gets into marriage is a absolute stranger. She has to live with him. She has to adjust with him. She has to face kind of language, kind of abuse that goes with it. Not that in every marriage it happens, but in many marriages when this kind of situation happens where her existence is questioned, her life is made difficult, she has no place to go, when she can't lodge a complaint. Many places they don't lodge a complaint. So the persons, whenever there is a complaint lodged, and 498, the immediate response is that she is an impossible girl who has come with a false complaint. This construct that there was absolutely the case is made up is something which is accepted. Why we accept it? Because the kind of society that we live in, which is very patriarchal. Woman is supposed to be second-class citizen here. So therefore, when she tries to lodge a complaint, she is actually asserting that she has a life of her own. She is seeking her protection. She is making the person who has violated against her as accountable. That's something which is the case. And there is a need for us to come with a larger awareness and discussion and debate on this subject. They are happening in India. More is required.
Thank you, sir. We do have a question from the audience. Hello, sir. How do you think, Nikita S has asked this question, how do you think violence against vulnerable communities needs to be addressed? Often, the discourse never addresses communities like the Devdasis, who, despite being victims of circumstances, continue to be treated as criminals to this day. What immediate measures can be taken to address this concern? Do we need specific laws or more systemic sensitization of the problems of such communities? I ask this in the context of a recent study by Pari that reveals how sex workers are forced to sell their bodies to even get basic HIV or AIDS tests done or avail other medical supplies.
When we are talking about domestic violence, it's certainly a little further than that. At Reach Law, we have been working with sex workers. We are working with LGBT communities. We have done a sizable amount of work on them. Reach Law, have been, as an individual, have been instrumental in forming this particular Karnataka Sex Workers Union. We also advise National Network of Sex Workers. Great amount of work is happening. The challenges are many. In fact, we'll be conducting series of programs on that aspect because we are associating ourselves with National Network of Sex Workers. Many women face severe oppression. The kind of challenge that they face is innumerable. We talk in terms of the life that they have, whether it's Devadasi, and how they are pushed into Devadasi situation, and what exactly is their life, what their rights are concerned. We are looking at the bodily integrity of a person. The bodily integrity of a person is disrespected the moment a person is a sex worker. I think that's something which is needed to be discussed more. Certainly we'll be coming to on that aspects in the future talks on the subject. Sure. I will take today the discussion is on the domestic violence. Yes.
Thank you, sir. We do have another question. So when we talk about domestic violence and we say, most of the times it's related, the cruelty results from dowry. Even though dowry is outlawed and there is a specific law against it, the practice still continues in subtle forms. How do we address that issue concerning that both dowry and domestic violence are interrelated?
See, the question is, dowry and domestic violence are very closely related. In fact, the dowry is a concept that never ends once you are in the circle of this dowry, it never ends. We have a case of a well-known realtor, his only daughter. She was married to another person, fairly well-placed, rich. They have properties. The girl has properties. The boy started demanding after the marriage, the good amount of dowry was given, that the girl need to buy few properties in his name in some city, metropolitan city. The first property was bought after dowry was being paid, and she was being pushed. She was beaten. She was abused. She was sent back home time and again, so that you are supposed to get this, you are supposed to get that. The family, the parents continued to support this, saying that somehow they wanted that the marriage survive. It's a question of respect of the family in the society, that the girl is not, the moment they talk in terms of separation of the girl, it is going to be difficult for her, that their reputation will be affected. So they would like to see that the person continues to be treated with kid gloves, despite the fact that he is making such amount of difficulty for the girl. She is subjected to such amount of violence. This continues here. This dowry is certainly directly related to many, many cases. In fact, it's not one. Wherever there is an abuse of, there is a demand for a dowry, the domestic violence, it goes with it. It may not be in a situation of this nature. Wherever there is a dowry that happens, payment of dowry that happens, it speaks one important thing, that the boy is superior, that it is, the girl has to be subservient, that she has to follow the diktats of the family to which she is married to. So these are the structures which come into it. There is this verbal abuse, non-verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse that she goes through. Some subtle, some very, very violent and visible. And this is something which is the case in great number of cases where there is dowry. And this is where, this is not my statement, it is a statement which most advocates would agree on this. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, sir. We don't have any more questions, but as a concluding note, with growing ideas, so when we say respecting women or bringing up their status, it's very, there's so varied ranges. It begins from the whole idea of being physically not as strong as men, not being paid proper wages, the ones that they actually deserve, not being able to engage in various fields of labor. So I think all these things amount to how we treat women, as even from the childhood, the way you treat a girl, the way she's trying to put on a market once she reaches puberty and all those things. So I think the whole thing is attached to the stigma of being divorced or being a victim of domestic abuse. That's the reason most people don't even get out of it or report. Do you think such a stigma will ever vanish? Such a stigma might ever stop existing with awareness?
So one thing which I would like to first dispel is that women are unequal compared to men in all aspects, that they are physically weak. I think these are the things which have come because right from the childhood, the girl does not enjoy the equal space which a boy enjoys in society. She is not allowed to play like a boy. She is not allowed the kind of freedom that a boy enjoys. The kind of protecting her comes in such a situation because we are a society where we have little respect for the woman. So therefore, the construct that she is unequal is very, very wrong. In fact, we have seen that they are capable of doing every kind of activity. There's absolutely no limitation kind of thing is concerned. So that's something which is very, very misplaced, and this predominantly an argument which is put forward over the period of that the woman is weaker, she is petite, the kind of language which we come across. Not necessarily. All that is required is that she is just an equal human being. That's all the thing is. If you look from that perspective, it changes. So we need to change the whole purpose of treating a woman, a girl child, different from a boy. Very important, because it's not fair. She has equal space, equal energy. All that is required is that kind of space. Or that's something, once she is given that kind of space, you see her to be very, very, very confident and successful. That's something which is important. Once she is confident and successful, she demands an equal space. She knows that she has a right. Now, because of the kind of society that we have built in, that she is always denied. Look at the kind of society we have, that she is denied education. For centuries, she was not given education. In fact, we come across the kind of law that we have, ancient laws that we talk in terms of. The woman's life is that she needs to be under the protection of the father during her childhood, and the protection of husband during her adult life, and under the protection of her children during her old age. She is always independent. That's the construct of the society that we have, despite the fact that she is one who is doing large amount of physical labor. She is taking care at home. She is working at home all the time. She is a most important caregiver at home. The amount of hours of work that she puts in is much, much more than men do. The only difference is that she is not paid for it. The kind of stamina that she has more stamina than men when it comes down to her work is concerned. So this kind of structure saying that she's a weak person is a very, very, very wrong argument that's being placed. That we would like to say that we disagree on that particular aspect. What we need is that there is a requirement to recognize her work, respect for her work, the kind of importance, the share of income for the work she does. I think these are something which are needed, that are denied to her. They are totally denied to her. I think that's where the whole construct comes in. So therefore, when you present that kind of a situation that she is supposed to do set of activity which is put on to her. Now we say that why she should cook all the time at home. Why in a matrimony, work at home is not shared? Why parenting, the responsibility is not shared? So the question here is that we don't talk in terms of sharing of this work, sharing of this responsibility. It's not that that's the job of a woman, that's the work of a woman. Now, who said this? How it came to be all those things are only work of a woman? I think that's something which we need to question. So that the construct when I said this is that the Constitution makes it very, very loud and clear that yes, everyone has to be treated equal. So when one has responsibility, one has an equal responsibility. And when if you look at again the scriptures, you talk in terms of the kind of responsibilities that have to be shared, essential. That sharing of responsibility does not happen in respect of women in matrimony. Great number of cases, women is pushed. She has to work at home, go to work outside, earn money, hand over the finances to the husband. She has no right to keep her own money. She has virtually nothing to decide. She has to everything. She has to listen to someone else, and she has to take what a fraction of her income in her hands, very fraction which comes into her hand. This is not one story. This happens across. And there are millions and millions of stories that we have of this nature. Across the globe, it is not only that it happens in societies like this. In fact, we started this global campaign on this, Reach Our Source, when we wanted to seek responses. We found responses coming from every part of this world, saying the kind of abuse that they face. I think that makes it very clear that there is a need that we need to take these dialogues more and make women understand that she has equal space and she needs to take that space. It's not something which is given. It's not something which one should give it. It's not something which is that of a person taking it. She has a right to it. All that it needed is that she needs to take it. She needs to demand that. It's not somebody's. It's her own right. She has a claim for it. She has an entitlement for it. It's not somebody which is going to give it to her. That's something which is I think the tone and the tenor on these aspects need to change. When we are able to do that kind of a language, yes, certainly we are addressing domestic violence. If you don't do these kind of this entire process of these dialogues is to bring in an awareness and discussion, these kind of discussions to the table. That's much needed. Yes.
Thank you. We do have a question in the chat box. Yeah. As common as intimate partner violence is across the world, in India it is often very less recognized. With the surge of live-in relationships in the modern day, how can live-in partners protect themselves against their abusers?
See, live-in partners now is accepted. It is not which is out of law. That live-in partner is no part of this. She's not a wife. She is not a spouse. Is not the statement. Okay? Live-in partner is accepted. In fact, if you were to look into the protection of women from domestic violence, live-in relationships are accepted as part of the law is concerned. The empty number of cases, judgments in Supreme Court just clearly recognize the live-in relationship. Live-in relationship is protected. The rights are protected. The person, if there is a child in a living relationship, child's rights are protected. If there is violence in the living relationship, the person is accountable to the same. So the independent of the marriage, a person in living relationships is entitled to protection under Domestic Violence Act. A right of shared residence is a protection. Right of maintenance is a protection. Right of custody of the children is a protection. So all these aspects are protected under the law that we have today, even in respect of living relationship. It's not that living relationship is totally alien to Indian society. In fact, it has been in existence for long many years. Only aspect was we never had a legal right that protected such women. They were more vulnerable. Now, with this particular present law, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act, that includes women who are in living relationship. So that is very loud and clear. I think women should know that those who are in living relationship are also entitled to protection under the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. Yes.
Thank you, sir. We don't have any questions on the chat box. So if audiences have any questions, do drop in. But other than that, this is it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was
One
a very
which we would like to
talk.
put across today is that many of these instances, many of these queries, many of these questions linger in the minds of women in this, the women who are facing domestic violence, or the families who see that their child is facing domestic violence, or the colleagues who see that their friend is facing this kind of domestic violence. Or this is something which most of us come across. You have questions, you inform her that there are ways we can approach these aspects, be compassionate, listen to them, try to understand. And any queries on this, you can just write to askreachlawyer@gmail.com. askreachlawyer@gmail.com. We will listen to these stories. We read about that. You write to us. We will respond to you regarding the same. There is a way. We will be in a position to provide some amount of legal advice given the kind of nature of the case that you have. This kind of space we feel that Reach Lawyer Source is absolutely essential. We need to build a large body of listeners. There is a need to build a large team of counselors. There is a need to build a large number of lawyers who are compassionate, who take that concern, careful, is listening to a person and giving a sound legal advice. We are building a community of large number of lawyers across India and other places. This is a process which we have started. Write to us. All that it requires is that you just make a note and write to us, and to us at a very simple address, askreachlawyer@gmail.com. We'll start taking on this. We have a responsibility. Let's make this life much easier for women. Let's make this space available for them to get that kind of an advice, a sound legal advice, someone to listen to their conditions, someone to advise them, counsel them. This is something which is needed. Let's create a team. If you are a volunteer, you can write to us. If you are someone who are a good listener, please write to us. We try to build this kind of community. Much needed. It's much needed. There's a necessity that we need to address these issues. Thank you. askreachlawyer@gmail.com. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity. Today was great. I'd request all the audience to switch their videos on so that we can click a picture, a screenshot. I think Mr. Ravi Kumar and Neerta Shi, could you please switch your videos on? Thank you. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, done. Yeah. Thank you so much for attending this meeting. Stay tuned for 6 more days of insightful talk shows from eminent speakers. And if you have any queries, any issues, and anything you want to talk about, do email askreachlawyer@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Good night.